Portfolios, let's get on it. I love portfolios, guys. I have a student portfolio that I am here to review with you guys. A little bit about me, I freaking love portfolios. I had the pleasure of having Karen Lewis at Ohio State, who is the absolute queen of portfolio design. She wrote a book on it. I'll link that down below. It's available on Amazon. That is one of the best books in architecture that I personally bought. Not sponsored, by the way, but I absolutely love the book. One of you guys, one of my viewers, reached out to me asking if I could review her portfolio. So Abby, thank you so much for allowing me to review your portfolio. Disclaimer, her work is fantastic and I believe she is applying to go to college, but correct me if I'm wrong. So this is her undergraduate portfolio. First of all, I just want to say her work is stunning, really good, and there definitely are some things though that we can do to better improve this portfolio. So let's start off with the cover page. First things first, I am not sure if this is going to be printed. I wouldn't say architecture, actually. I would just narrow it down to portfolio. I do like the black and white, but also there's a lot of lines here. And architecture, we've been trying to clean things up, and I think minimalism is really, really sexy. I would recommend just cleaning up these extra lines, especially on the outside. So you don't need an undergraduate portfolio. I already know it's a portfolio because you're just gonna have a portfolio there. Your name on there is great. I would save your contact information maybe towards the end or just make it smaller because that seems to be a big portion. Now, this is a landscape oriented book. I highly recommend actually changing this orientation. Why I recommend this is because if you start with a book like that, open it like that. Actually, this is better. Okay, you start with a landscape book like this and you open it like this, your eyes are working really hard. And I think a lot of times we have to consider how people read and view their books. And honestly, if you have a portrait oriented book, this is more effective actually because your eyes are doing less work. When you scan the page, you're only going this far. But if you have a landscape oriented portfolio, it's a lot of work. So I don't recommend ever using a landscape portfolio. This is just my personal preference and also Karen's. So starting off, the first spread is a little dense. Now, I don't know if there's a page limit here, but sometimes I do think less is more. I see throughout her whole portfolio is that she has inconsistent text sizes. The actual font looks different. She also is including square footage, which I don't think is necessary. I don't know if she wants to do a cover page instead of flipping the title page or not. So here's what I recommend doing. I recommend having a cover page with just one render of this beautiful seaside villa I see that she designed. Also, this is on black. Once again, why you have all these white borders, it boxes things up and I don't recommend it. Also, your floor plans are on a white background. Nothing wrong with that by itself, but if you are using a black background, I think you should be intentional with that. Perhaps the floor plans are just inverted, so you can do that quickly in Photoshop or just export everything with just a little bit thicker of a line weight. Now let's talk about the body of text. Way too much text here. Whenever I personally look through a portfolio, and probably you as well, when you look through an architectural portfolio, you're really only looking at the photographs and the plans and the elevation sketches and how you got there. So I think be super intentional with your text. Also, I recommend using columns of text. Highly recommend using columns. Once again, you just want to limit how your eyes move across the page. And this is why if you are reading a really hefty textbook, it's gonna have 2, 3, even 4 columns I've seen before, depending on the size of the book, versus just one really, really long line of text. This is why columns are really good. That's just for the first page. I would actually make this project, it seems super developed, by the way, nice job. I would extend this project on 2 spreads and probably include some party diagrams and concept diagrams. I think that is very beneficial to include, especially in this field. Moving on to project number 2, which is futuristic house. The font seems different. It's also on a white background. I'm not sure what the motivation was flipping between black and white. I would actually recommend just picking one or the other. White, if you're printing, just seems to be the classic response, and it's sometimes black doesn't always turn out the way we want it to, and line weights don't come as clear. So I see in your sketches you have some lines behind, almost as if you drew it on a notepad. Going into Photoshop and completely erasing this work, just because it gets a little distracting. When we are comparing your last spread to this spread, it seems like your grid is totally messed up. And what I mean by grid is that when you set up your pages in InDesign, you want to follow a very strict grid. And once again, this just speaks to your organization strategies, but all of your photos should follow this grid. Your text box should align to this grid perfectly. And this seems to be lacking in your portfolio. And there's also a lot of text here as well. Other than that, I love the render. It almost looks like it's done in The Sims. Oh, it is. It's done in The Sims 4, and I love that. Now, I do have a tutorial about turning a Sims screenshot into an architectural rendering. Abby, I would recommend that you go check out, and it's just a little bit of Photoshop work, but I think we can really spice up these renders. I do love the project, and it's really cool that you included sketches. Sketches are fantastic. Now, moving on to your next section, we have architectural sketches. Once again, this actually better aligns with the photo grid that you established for your futuristic house. Last project, love your sketches here. Absolutely love it. Now, one recommendation I would make is just taking your scan sheet into Photoshop, playing around with your light levels. So definitely do that. Highly recommend that. Other than that, 2 columns, limit the text, and let the sketches that you've worked so hard on speak for themselves. All right, project number 4 is the lighthouse in my dreams. First of all, love the title of it because it's more of an art piece. I don't know if it needs 2 spreads. I also understand a lot of times when we are applying to architecture school, we might not have enough projects to beef up our portfolio. If you think that the process here is super important to highlight, that's great. But also at the same time, it's not necessarily an architectural project. You didn't show form iterations of how the form really developed and evolved over a set period of time. Instead, I'm seeing more work on how you painted this. If you want to highlight that and like highlight the skill, that's great. But I do think the final actually shows your skills well enough. The 3 portraits and 3 styles is absolutely fantastic. Please, please, please keep these in. I think it's great to show that you have the capability of sketching in multiple ways. And I would also just limit the text a little bit. And if you had to include a title, definitely include it. Mood specific self-portrait. Absolutely love this one too. I believe this is also part of your AP art. And this is great. And just limit the text and let the image and your self-portrait speak for itself. And then the 5 stages of grief. It does also seem to be your AP art project. Let it speak for itself. Less text here, and make sure that you follow this grid. We're back on the black background too, so I think black has been the major one instead of the white. Okay, and I see fix yourself, breaking free, a lot of process work, which is super great. And I definitely want to see that over the text. So just try and limit the text. A lot of great work here, Abby. I mean, it's really fantastic, and I think your AP art class helped you a lot. If you think that you want to spend more time highlighting the architecture work though, then I recommend just maybe merging a couple AP art projects together on one spread. Once again, the still life of the shoes. The minute you mention still life, I'm gonna imagine the photo. So you don't really need to include the reference photo. And I love the life of a student's desk though. It's only gonna get worse in school. Lastly, you have another 2 great projects, which I would highlight more, especially considering that you are applying for architecture school. At least I think you are. I would group some art projects together and let these breathe a little bit. Love the renders, great plans. It looks like it was done in Autodesk Revit here. I would limit this text though a lot actually, and possibly work on the interior renders aspect, spice them up a little bit in Photoshop. Just make sure that your text and grid lines are consistent, because right now they are not. Your last project, which is a residential model of the family of 4. This is a fantastic model. Include more model photographs. We love seeing physical things. Limiting the text Next, following the grid line, choosing a consistent background color. I would recommend going white. Do not include extra lines. I don't think it's necessary. If you want to include page numbers, that's always encouraged. And I think I'm just struggling to see if you're printing this or not, or if it's supposed to flip like a book, because right now it just reads as one long spread. You could make it look more like a portfolio book, which is very common in the major. Overall, great work. Regardless, Abby, I hope that this helped, and I hope that this helped other students who are producing similar kind of work. If you have any portfolio related questions, please leave me a comment down below. I also have a whole playlist of portfolio stuff that I will link up here. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time. Love you guys.